Roadblocks have been cleared for May 9th, but for petitioners, the fight is far from over. A world-class tourist destination is opening its shores again to foreign tourists after the country relaxes travel rules. And an announcement that has sent fans into a kilig frenzy. Real-life couple from the Korean hit series Crash Landing on You, Hyun Bin and Son Ye Jin, will soon tie the knot. Petitioners behind the dismissed disqualification cases against presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos are not giving up just yet. They're taking their case to the full commission, which is now left with 4 members out of the original 7. Authorities, meanwhile, caution against the unintended backlash of the decision about the non-filing of income tax returns. Melissa Lopez has more.
2 groups behind the junk disqualification cases against former Senator Bongbong Marcos are preparing their respective appeals to ask the COMELEC and bank to reverse the decision of the 2-member First Division favoring the presidential candidate. Karma, or the campaign against the return of the Marcoses and martial law, as well as Akbayan Party List, both found the ruling of Commissioners Amy Ferolino and Marlon Casquejo unfair and unfounded. They plan to submit motions for reconsideration next week.
Klaro din po na may conviction. He is convicted and he has not paid the penalty.
Tuloy ang laban at hindi natin papayagan ang patuloy na pambubudol ni Bongbong Marcos.
A major point of contention in the 41-page decision is the conclusion that Marcos's failure to file income tax returns or ITRs did not involve moral turpitude or a crime against proper behavior despite committing that mistake for 4 straight years. It made the rounds on social media as netizens reacted to Ferolino saying that not submitting ITRs was, quote, not inherently wrong without the law punishing it. The poll body sought to correct this misconception.
The COMELEC does not say that failure to file an ITR is not a punishable offense. It is. Failure to file an ITR is not by itself necessarily tax evasion. Okay? These are 2 different offenses, punished differently under the law.
In a statement, retired Commissioner Rowena Guanzon pointed out that Ferolino made erroneous assumptions and turned a blind eye on the faults of the Marcos camp. For Bongbong's lawyer Vic Rodriguez, the case is over and done with.
Happy rin kami at very clear yung desisyon ng korte that if a person would want to deprive someone of his political right, kinakailangan yung penalty na yan ay clear, unequivocal, and expressly stated in the decision.
Karma appeals for a swift decision as the cases took a month to be resolved.
Decide it as fast as they can so that we can bring the matter to the Supreme Court at the soonest possible time.
All eyes are now on the 4-member COMELEC and bank with at least 3 votes needed to either reverse the First Division's decision or affirm the dismissal of the cases. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
So what do other presidential candidates think about the COMELEC First Division's junking of the disqualification cases against their rival Marcos? Take a listen.
Mahirap siyang intindihin, pero mahirap kasing mag-comment ngayon dahil yung proseso hindi pa tapos. Pag sinabi mong walang enough na batas, so mag-wonder ka, bakit na-convict kung wala palang enough na batas?
We'd rather not comment kasi ang alam namin sa aming kampanya, we rise on our own merits, on our own platforms, our own programs. We don't mind because we don't treat them as our enemies.
Good for him. Nabawasan siya ng sakit ng ulo. Mahirap ang pakiramdam ng isang kandidato na maraming kinakaharap na pagsubok. Remember, we are not enemies. We are just competing with each other. Ang tunay nating kalaban ay yung nagpapahirap sa tao.
Senator Manny Pacquiao, meanwhile, says he wasn't surprised with the decision. He adds it has no effect on his campaign to fight for the poor and to convince people that the country needs a leader who will not cheat and steal. More than 130 economists, including 7 former socio-economic planning secretaries, backed the presidential bid of Vice President Leni Robredo. They say Robredo has a solid economics and legal background needed to craft policies for economic recovery amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Robredo previously worked as an economist and economics professor and earned her bachelor's degree in economics at the University of the Philippines. She was in the province of Laguna today. In the 2016 vice presidential race, Robredo lost to Bongbong Marcos in Laguna by 50,000 votes.
Ito kasi at this stage in the campaign, masama para sa kandidato maging confident. Kaya kahit grabe yung sigasig ng volunteers dito, sa lahat na lugar, talaga ang tingin namin, kailangan namin pagtrabahuhan pa ng husto. So, yung klase ng volunteers ngayon, wala nito noong 2016. So, we're hoping for better results, pero hindi kami magkakampante.
Manila Mayor Isko Moreno was also in Laguna yesterday, where he had a 12-hour motorcade, his longest ever. Moreno also held a motorcade in the cities of Malabon and Navotas today here in Metro Manila. Cavite Governor John Vic Remulla is officially endorsing the tandem of Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte. Remulla promised to foot the bill for all of Marcos's campaign in Cavite and the support of all mayors aligned with the Remullas.
We'll make all efforts for him to win here. Last time he won by 150,000 votes over the next one. This time I think he'll win by 800,000.
Remulla says he has spoken to presidential candidate Ping Lacson, who is from Cavite, about the latter's support for Marcos and that the center understood his decision. Governor Remulla is a member of the National Unity Party that's allied with Lacson's Partido Reforma. Lacson, meanwhile, believes voters in Davao del Norte will support his presidential bid since the province is the bailiwick of Partido Reforma stalwarts, former House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez, and incumbent Governor Edwin Jubahib. Some senatorial candidates faced a forum organized by a teachers group to talk about some of the problems plaguing the education sector, from the low salaries of teachers despite heavy workloads to the effects of the pandemic on the mental health of students. What measures will the senatorial bets push for to solve these issues? AC Nichols has the details.
It's a never-ending issue for Filipino teachers. They are overworked and underpaid. In an online forum, members of the Alliance of Concerned Teachers asked senatorial bets how they can help address these long-standing concerns. Senatorial bets Lauren Legarda, Win Gatchalian, and Nery Colmenares vowed to press for higher salaries for teachers. Labor leader Sonny Matula says teachers should also have opportunities to qualify for promotions.
Bibigyan po natin yung ating mga teachers ng pagkakataon na magkaroon ng human resource development po, magkaroon ng scholarship para ma-upgrade nila ang kanilang skills.
Experts say quality of education suffers because teachers are overworked. To ease their burden, a representative of re-electionist Laila De Lima says more teachers should be hired to improve learning supervision. He adds the Education Department should also hire more teaching assistants.
Ang dapat na pa-prioritize po ng mga teachers hindi yung mga administrative work, kundi yung actual practice ng kanilang profession, yung pagtuturo po sa ating mga estudyante.
The pandemic has hit the education sector hard. Surveys show the health crisis has negatively impacted students' mental health. In response, Senator Risa Ontiveros says schools should support students facing mental health issues. She's pushing for plantilla positions for guidance counselors.
Bukod sa napakababa ng ratio nila sa mga estudyante, ay wala pa pong security of tenure din. At dahil doon ay walang siguradong salary level, walang sigurado mga benepisyo sa ilalim ng batas, at lalong walang karapatan at pagkakataon na makapag-organisa.
Changes in the curriculum is another hot topic among stakeholders. Former Congressman Teddy Baguelat believes students should be learning about human rights issues. He adds the Education Department should recognize schools that cater to indigenous people groups.
Naman ang palaging nilang dinadahilan kaya pinapasara itong mga IT schools, itong mga lumad schools, ay hindi daw accredited kasi ng Department of Education.
The education sector counts around 30 million students and at least 800,000 teachers. AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
Former local officials and a representative will face CNN Philippines' next senatorial forum. Former Quezon City Mayor Herbert Bautista, former Makati Representative Monsur Del Rosario, and former Quezon City Councilor Jopet Sison will respond to questions on pressing issues facing the nation. Catch the forum on Sunday, 7 in the evening, only here on CNN Philippines. Up ahead on Newsnight, a look at the world-class tourist destination of Boracay following the reopening of the country's borders, and the government extends a third round of its national COVID vaccination drive until Friday next week. Details when we return. Welcome back to Newsnight. We're reopen its borders to foreign tourists today. Stanley Gaheta gives us a look at the situation at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport.
The Bureau of Immigration expects a slight increase in the number of passengers arriving in the Philippines a day after easing restrictions. Immigration's estimates about 8,500 individuals entering the country, a bit higher compared to the count last February 10 that reached 8,000. And from this count, about 27 to 30% are foreign nationals. Immigration spokesperson Dana Sandoval expects such count to be higher today compared to February 9 when it reached only 4,800 arrivals. However, there is still little difference between the number of arrivals on weekdays and weekends as the pandemic continues.
Little by little naman it will pick up sa mga susunod na linggo.
Most of the returning passengers are overseas Filipino workers. Meanwhile, based on immigration records, foreign visitors are coming mainly from the US and Canada. The Philippine government noted that this new rule has boosted the country's tourism sector. Foreigners are starting to arrive, expressing excitement in visiting the Philippines after a long while.
I miss my walks in Mount Makiling because it's always very good air over there, and I miss going bird watching in that area. Yeah.
Under Executive Order 408, nationals from 157 countries may enter the country without a visa for an initial stay of 30 days. These countries include Canada, Japan, Singapore, US, New Zealand, Malaysia, and South Korea. However, foreign tourists from countries not listed under the EO need to secure a 9E visa and an entry exemption document or EED through the Philippine embassies or consulates abroad. Visitors should be fully vaccinated and present their vaccination certificates from their original country. All tourists are also required to present a negative RT-PCR test taken at least 48 hours prior to their departure, a return ticket, a passport valid for at least 6 months, and a travel and health insurance for COVID-19 with a minimum coverage of $35,000 or at least 1.7 million peso worth of insurance coverage. This should be valid for the entire duration of their stay. Visitors who fail to comply will be turned back at the airports and book on the first available flight to their port of origin. Foreign spouses and children of Filipino citizens, even balikbayans, will no longer be required to have return tickets not later than 30 days from the date of arrival in the Philippines. The Bureau of Immigration expects that the number of foreign nationals visiting the country to increase as summer approaches. Stanley Gahete, CNN Philippines.
One of the world's best beaches is welcoming foreign travelers after 2 years, and with summer just around the corner, Boracay is cautiously reopening to revive tourism. Tristan Nadala joins us live from Boracay with an update. Tristan, day 2 of border reopenings. Are there more foreign travelers on the island now?
Tia, we have yet to see a number of foreign travelers in Boracay Island 2 days since the government eased restrictions for international travelers. The tourism department says that over 1,000 foreign visitors have arrived in the country, but they have yet to visit several tourist destinations. And while waiting for tourists or foreign travelers, residents and workers here in Boracay Island are ready and excited to welcome more visitors nearly 2 years since the COVID-19 pandemic started. The world-famous island of Boracay aims to stay at the top of its game, not only for its powdery white sand and crystal blue waters, but also for its high vaccination rate. The island is also bracing for the influx of tourists as the government eases restrictions for fully vaccinated foreign travelers.
Ang sinasabi ng mga foreigners, gusto nila pumunta dito daw. First, we are vaccinated. Number 2 daw, dahil daw may ease of travel, madali raw, negative RT-PCR, tapos kailangan lang fully vaccinated and then no more quarantine.
The Tourism Department is now in talks with the South Korean government to encourage more travelers to visit the Philippines. The government expects that visitors from Japan, United States, Canada, and United Kingdom will also pick up in the coming months.
When we talk to the tour operators, yung mga hotels, etc., usually yan, naghihintay yan ng bakasyon ng ibang bansa or magfa-file pa sila ng leave. So they're thinking baka daw mga June pa daw yung mga bulk kasi yun ang bakasyon nila. Pero nagugulat yung mga tour operators kasi as we speak daw, pagod na raw sila sa kaka-answer ng email. Marami na nga as early as March gusto na pumunta dito. Mga from Canadian, and these are not even balikbayans. They're really people revenge travel talaga.
Local officials say that all tourism workers in the island are now fully vaccinated and 30% of the islanders have received their booster shots. Hotel establishments and resort owners are now starting to rehire their workers due to the anticipated increase of visitors.
Ito na pinagdaan natin, yung vaccination nga, no? Then ito nga na dapat talaga doon sa ating port ay ready na yung security, of course the maintenance and order. At of course, yung implementation, strict implementation ng minimum health protocols. Yun lang naman ang pinagdaan dyan. At saka ready naman lahat ng establishments.
Masaya na po kami, sir. Kasi para pasok na sila eh. Kailangan namin sila eh. Sana makabangon na po. Kasi hirap talaga pag pandemic. Kahit paano, makaano na kami. Makabisita na kami.
Kasi dati tahimik dito, pangit. Wala kabuhay-buhay yung Boracay dati. Ngayon, mas okay na. Daming improvement.
Around 1.1 million tourism workers in the island have been affected since the COVID-19 pandemic started. Finally, Boracay residents see a glimmer of hope. Local officials say that Boracay has 0 active COVID-19 cases. In the past few days, local tourist arrivals is also starting to pick up. And just to give us an idea, from 6,000 daily arrivals in December, it went down to 400 in January 2022 due to the Omicron surge. But now, the daily arrival is ranging from 2,000 daily arrivals. Back to you, Pia.
Tristan, any preparations being made by local officials in anticipation of the weekend just before Valentine's?
So far, local officials say that minimum health standards will be enforced, and there's nothing special when it comes to their preparation. Foreign travelers or tourists should register first and get their QR codes before arriving to the island. Hotel and resort owners are also made aware that they should comply with the minimum health standards so that to prevent another COVID-19 surge. Back to you, Pia.
How does the DOT plan to encourage more tourists to visit destinations like Boracay?
The Tourism Department is also offering booster shots for foreign tourists. So for example, here in Boracay, if a foreign traveler arrived here and wanted to get his booster shots, he or she can walk in different booster sites and then get boosted while on vacation. Back to you, Pia.
Tristan Odalo there reporting live from the island of Boracay in Aklan. The country's average COVID-19 cases for the past week was down to a little over 6,100. The health department says this is nearly the same number of daily cases in mid-October 2021 before the Omicron surge. Officials say all regions aside from Soc-Sargen are at low to moderate risk category and health systems remain at low risk.
Mas marami ng 28% ang bilang ng mga kaso sa kanilang lugar nitong huling 2 linggo kung ikukumpara sa huling 3 hanggang 4 na linggo. Ang patuloy na pagbaba ng mga kaso at pagpapanatiling low risk ng ating national healthcare system capacity ay patunay that vaccines work.
Today, there are nearly 3,800 new COVID-19 infections and active cases are at more than 91,000. The ongoing third round of the national COVID-19 vaccination drive will be extended until Friday next week. The Health Department earlier set it on February 10 and 11 with a target of 6 million primary doses and booster shots for adults and children aged 12 to 17. The Labor Department earlier urged private employers to extend paid time off to workers accompanying their children during the vaccination days. Nearly 60 million Filipinos have so far completed their COVID-19 shots. Only 8 million have availed of their boosters. High pump prices may stick around for a while, and when oil prices go up, everything else follows. As Amor Santos reports, transport and consumer groups are again calling on government to intervene.
Fuel prices have been on a 6-week rising streak, and it seems there's no letting up soon. Industry sources say another price hike is expected next week, worth 90 centavos to 1 peso and 10 centavos. According to US-based financial services JP Morgan, global prices could reach $120 a barrel from the current $90 due to the crisis between oil exporters Russia and Ukraine, sending jitters to oil import-dependent countries such as the Philippines.
Naku, Diyos ko, hindi ko nga alam bakit laging tumataas. Kawawa naman kami mga tricycle driver.
Gabi na po bago ako makapagawa ng pang-uwi. Masyadong mataas ang diesel.
Gawin na lang 100 para wala nang bumiyahe. Manawagan nila kami sa gobyerno na sana maanuhan nila yung gasolina, masolusyonan nila talaga.
Transport groups have filed yet another petition for a jeepney fare hike. From the minimum fare of 9 pesos, they want it raised to 14 pesos in Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Calabarzon. While the LTFRB says it will evaluate the request, fare hikes are considered a last resort at this time. In the meantime, the government has so far shelled out billions of pesos for fuel subsidy and a compensation program for transport operators and drivers.
There should be a balancing of interest between the commuters and the operators kasi pare-pareho naman tayong tinamaan din ng pandemic. Kung sana may iba pa tayong solusyon other than raising the fare, dito po tayo. But as I've said po, I do not want to preempt naman po the hearing.
Besides the impact on the transport sector, higher fuel costs are passed on to consumers through higher prices of goods and basic commodities, putting the brakes on the declining inflation rates, according to analyst Jonathan Ravelas. Consumer group Laban Consumer maintains subsidies worth a few thousand pesos are not enough. It says the government should put all the stops, including granting the recurring request to suspend fuel excise taxes. Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi says the department is working closely with Congress in hopes of amending the train law and suspending the excise tax of 6 pesos for diesel and 10 pesos for gasoline for 6 months. Until then, Cusi said there's transparency in the computation of fuel prices and there are cash relief programs to help drivers, farmers, and fisherfolk. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
More stories coming right up. Crash landing on new stars. Yoon Bin and Sonia Jin are sending kilig vibes all over again. The K-drama power couple announces they are getting married. And it's a different story for OPM singers Moira De La Torre and Zach Tabudlo, who dropped heartbreaking collab ahead of Valentine's Day. Details next. Stay tuned. Welcome back to CNN Philippines. In sports, the long wait is over for PBA fans. The Governor's Cup finally resuming today after a 2-month delay due to the pandemic. The Meralco Bolts keep their unbeaten record after clinching their 3rd straight victory in the first game. The Bolts beat the NLEX Road Warriors 110-100. Import Tony Bishop powered the team to victory, scoring 14 of his 32 points in the first period alone. Aaron Black backstopped with 19 13 points, while 3 other Bolts also scored in double figures. NLEX fell to its second straight loss since starting 4-0 in the conference, spoiling KJ McDaniel's game-high 41 points. The second game today between Magnolia Hotshots and TNT Tropang Giga is currently underway, 31-14 in the first quarter. Meanwhile, the rosters are set for the much-awaited NBA All-Star Game. Team captains LeBron James and Kevin Durant picked their players for the mid-season classic. LeBron's starting 5 include Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Jokic, while the Kings' reserves are Jimmy Butler, Luka Doncic, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, Fred VanVleet, and as of today, KD's former Nets teammate James Harden. For Team Durant, the starters are Joel Embiid, J.A. Morant, Jason Tatum, Andrew Wiggins, and Trae Young. Tatum replaced Durant as KD will miss the All-Star game because of an injury. The All-Star game happens February 21st, Philippine time in Cleveland, Ohio. K-drama fans also have something to look forward to. Yoon Bin and Sonia Jin, the lead couple of the hit series Crash Landing on You, are getting married. The two confirmed the news in separate social media posts. The actor described their engagement as the, quote, most important decision of his life, while the actress shared a photo of a mini wedding dress saying, quote, I found someone to spend the rest of my life with. Yes, it's him, unquote. K-drama power couple has been the talk of the town since the announcement last night. The date of their wedding has not yet been disclosed. And before we go, OPM stars Moira De La Torre and Zach Tabudlo are breaking hearts in time for the Valentine weekend. Moira and Zach released their first collab, Iba. It talks about how a person feels when their partner falls out of love. The two are both known for their heartbreaking ballads, including Zach's chart-topping single, Paano, and Moira's Tagpuan and Paubaya. The lyric video topped YouTube music trends with nearly 400,000 views. Let's listen in. And that is it for now. Join me again on news.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa Zinday Utso sa Dayan sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
If you put on a bit of weight after the holidays, don't worry, you're not alone. Many of us have used the holidays as an excuse to indulge and feast on our favorite meals. But if you're looking to lose that holiday weight, there's no better time than to start now. Now, we've heard about a lot of different ways to burn fat, and one of which is having a low-fat diet. But what's more important is for us to understand how your body burns fat or utilizes it for energy use. On the program today, we'll talk about how our body utilizes fat for fuel and how to better utilize fat as a source of energy. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk right here on CNN Philippines. When we hear the term fat, we often associate it with bad health. But pound for pound, fat has much more dense energy compared to protein or carbohydrates. Our guests are here today to tell us more about this. With us is Dr. Dex Macalintal, who is a lifestyle medicine specialist and registered nutritionist dietitian from Calamba Medical Center. Also with us is Dr. Joy Fontanilla. She's an endocrinologist and the section chief of endocrinology at the Asian Hospital and Medical Center. Contrary to popular belief, fat is actually essential to our health. It gives us energy and helps us absorb a lot of things. But fat always gets a bad rap compared to proteins, carbohydrates. When people hear fat, it's always sort of a bad thing. That's why I'd like to start with Dr. Joy first. Why is fat important to our body, and why does it always get this bad rap?
Many people don't realize that we need fat in our bodies. Our cell walls are lined with fat. Our human brain is actually made up of 60% fat. And we need fat to make hormones and other substances in our bodies. And our fat, we need fat as a source of energy as well, especially during times when we're fasting or doing prolonged exercise. Fat is needed to support growth and development. We need to absorb vitamins like your fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K.
So when it comes to energy use, fat definitely pound for pound, mas maraming energy ang packed sa fat. But a lot of people think of carbohydrates as the source of energy, the main source of energy ng mga tao. Why is this so? Could you explain that difference? Why is that notion really there?
Because your carbohydrates give you around 4 kilocalories per gram of carbohydrates, same as your protein, but your fats give you around 9 kilocalories per gram. The thing is, your carbohydrates are the so-called main source of your energy because all of these carbohydrates turn to glucose, which is needed by virtually all of the cells in your body as your energy. It is easily utilized kasi. So mas madaling na-utilize talaga yung carbohydrates. But then again, after ma-deplete yung sources mo ng carbohydrates, there goes your fat as your next source of energy. And then saka pa si protein masisira or makukuha ng ating katawan to become your main source of energy.
Now let's talk about why we need to maintain a good level of fat in our body, or why excess fat naman is bad for our body. It's not just purely for aesthetic reasons, but an excess stores of fat, that be it cholesterol as well, does a lot of damage in the long run to our body. Dr. Joy, could you talk about this a little bit more? Because a lot of people might think that the only reason why we want to shed fat is to look good.
Too much fat, as you know, is not good for our bodies. It can get deposited in your blood vessels, your arteries, your heart, in your liver, different parts of the body where it can do a lot of harm. And people can have stroke or heart disease, fatty liver, and eventually lead to liver failure if it's uncontrolled. So we really need to control the amount of fat that we take in, but not just the amount of fat, the type of fat is very, very important as well. Let me talk about the unhealthy fats first. So what we call the bad fats are your trans fats and your saturated fats. The trans fats come in two forms, artificial and natural. The artificial form is the one that's really been known to be hazardous to health. You get trans fats from chemically altering your vegetable oils so that they stay solid at room temperature and they have a longer shelf life. So you see it in a lot of fast food, French fries, fried foods like donuts and baked goods, cakes, pie crusts, cookies and crackers, and thick margarine. So it's these bad fats that tend to clog up the arteries from the heart. And saturated fat, you find these in animal products, like cheese and pork and high-fat dairy or full cream dairy products. Now these are the ones that tend to clog up your arteries and cause inflammation and other bad things, nasty things in the body.
Now I'd like to talk about, Dr. Dex, with you on how the notion of burning the amount of calories that you take in. A lot of people say, I'm relatively young, I'm in my 20s, I can eat anything I want because I'll just burn that off. Is that the correct way of thinking when it comes to calories and trying to minimize the bad effects of having excess fat stores?
You have to burn these fat. But then again, remember that actually fat cells never decrease in number. they only decrease in size. So you have to decrease the size of your fat. So you have to have your total body exercise. Around 30 minutes or 90 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per day can be achieved, can help us achieve your weight loss or maintain your weight loss. But again, do not overdo yourself. If your body cannot sustain all of these exercises, you have to have your checkup with your doctors.
You mentioned earlier how yung carbs ng katawan ang unang binaburn bago umabot sa fat. Does this apply to why sometimes a lot of people who maybe have a exercise routine or do exercises pretty frequently, they notice parang di naman ako pumapayat?
Kapag sumusobra po ang inyong carbohydrates, that can turn to fat. Any excess of your carbohydrates will then turn to fat. So nasa-store sila as fats instead of just your glycogen or your storage form of your carbohydrates. So nangyayari na nag-overload yon at kayo po ay nagkakaroon ng more storage of fat kapag sobra-sobra yung carbohydrates niyo. Again, too much of everything is bad for the body.
Moderation definitely is key in a lot of things in life. Now, we've established how important fat is for our body, but the excess fat is what we want to tap for energy. We'll talk about that next. Keep it here on Med Talk Health Talk, only on CNN Philippines. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is Med Talk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. There are some studies that say that a high-intensity type of workout for a short duration, short meaning probably around 1 to 5 minutes at most, is really beneficial in tapping those fat stores, in trying to use the fat as a form of energy. What should people use to maximize using fat as an energy source, Dr. Dex?
Number one is, of course, the duration and your intensity of your exercise. If you have a high intensity exercise, and even if it's for a short duration, you may use up all your energy stores. And when your energy stores are depleted, your fat can be utilized, especially if you are also doing it on your fasted state.
Dr. Dex, so would you recommend an efficient workout, an efficient exercise routine entails na wala munang kakainin carbs, wala munang kakainin rice or anything sugary before that workout is going to be done?
Best kasi na nag-workout tayo on a fasted state if you really want to lose those excess weight. So best yan is some morning if you have already fasted. That's the ideal state there. So with that, you have already used up some of your carbohydrates, some of your carbohydrate stores, and then you are slowly tapping on of these fatty contents in your body.
Let's touch on metabolism here a little bit. How big of a factor does this play in being able to utilize our fat stores?
Well, metabolism is determined not just by what you eat, but also by your genetics. Genetics determine your metabolism. Your physical activity can determine your metabolism. And also the food that you eat can determine your metabolism. People who are, quote unquote, born with a fast metabolism, born with the thin genes, do metabolize much quicker and tend to lose weight much easier than those who have a slower metabolism. So you can try to help out the metabolism by doing exercises, by being more physically active, and also by reducing the amount of food that you eat, by sleeping the right amount of time.
Could there be an underlying illness with this? Could there be a metabolic problem here? Could there be a syndrome associated with this that they should have themselves checked? At what point do you think should our viewers think of having a checkup with their doctor despite having a good exercise routine, a good diet, but they're still not losing that excess fat?
You think you have a slow metabolism, it would be good to have an examination. Some people may have problems with their thyroid. Some people may have Cushing's syndrome. Cushing's syndrome is a disease wherein you have too much steroid or cortisol in your body, and that can cause you to deposit a lot of fat in the body. So there's certain conditions that we need to rule out if you have a slow metabolism. Medications as well can slow down metabolism. So people who take steroids for asthma or inflammatory antipsychotics or medications for sleep and for mental health can also affect metabolism. So it would be good to see your doctor if you have any questions about your metabolism.
Marami sa ating mga Pilipino ang gusto ng quick fix, you know? People do lose weight at that short amount of time, but what are they actually doing to their body in the long run, Dr. Dex?
So usually these fat diets are very high in fat, and low carbohydrate diets really work in losing weight, but remember that your weight is composed of your mass from your bone, your water, your fat, and your muscle. So a person doing low carbohydrate diets really lose weight from your water and from your muscle mass. Example of studies show that a low-fat diet and a high-fat ketogenic diet on athletes in training, their results show that the high-fat diet really just lose muscle mass. Again, in your low-carbohydrate diets, you only actually lose water weight and muscle mass. The problem is, since you metabolize all of these fat stores and then you add on more of your fat stores, you still give more fat than you actually need. Your body is prone to having all other diseases, like, let's say, for example, your gallbladder disease, even GERD, for example, and a host of a lot of diseases.
Funny you mentioned that, Dr. Dex, because that's one of the important diet routines that's very prevalent now amongst Filipinos, and that is a ketogenic diet, because research shows that high-fat diets like the ketogenic diet can actually help you lose weight. But there are some caveats to this, and we'll talk more about them when we return. You're watching Med Talk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. In recent years, many of the most popular diets include high amounts of fat. But can reducing your carbohydrate intake and replacing them with fat really be effective for long-term weight loss? I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to Med Talk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. Now, many of us have heard of the ketogenic diet. Nowadays, it's really gaining popularity as the go-to diet. Dr. Joy, I'd like to ask you, this ketogenic diet was initially designed for diabetics. How did this evolve into a meal plan, a diet plan, a lifestyle plan for mainstream people?
Actually, the ketogenic diet was developed in the 1920s as a treatment for seizures. So people had seizures or epilepsy were treated with ketogenic diet. And it's just been off late that they have been used for weight loss. So I do have patients who swear by it. They do lose weight without having to count calories, and they feel less hungry because when you're on a ketogenic diet, you call on your fat reserves for energy and you form ketone bodies, and these tend to suppress the appetite.
Dr. Joy, for our viewers who have been diagnosed with diabetes, is ketogenic diet a good option for them to have or to follow, or are there pretty much other diets out there that can be really applicable if you have diabetes?
If you have diabetes, we need to individualize your diet. If you're on certain medications like medicines that are SGLT2 inhibitors, insulin, ketogenic diet may cause hypoglycemia or acidosis. So we need to be careful about prescribing ketogenic diets for patients in those cases.
If there is a diet that is popular, it is very important that you consult with your doctor before taking part of this, because like what Dr. Joy said, every diet, not just for those for diabetics, but everyone's diet must be individualized for that person, ideally. Now, Dr. Dex, let's talk about some of the misconceptions of the ketogenic diets. Maraming gumagawa nito. Actually, maraming natutuwa because they feel that they can eat animal fat to their heart's delight and they can adhere to this diet. What are some of the misconceptions, the popular misconceptions about the ketogenic diet?
The first misconception is that you are going to reverse your diseases with the ketogenic diet. Actually, you're just controlling your diabetes when you do your ketogenic diet. Another misconception is that you can eat everything. You can eat everything that is fatty, lechon, butcheron, bacons, and everything that is fatty you can eat. Ilang itlog, ilagay mo sa plato mo, it's okay. No, it doesn't work that way. Your fats, now we have been talking about fats. You have your monounsaturated fatty acids, you have your polyunsaturated fatty acids, you have saturated fats, you have your trans fats. And if you are banking more of these animal sources like your meats and your dairy, these are all rich in saturated fats that, according to the American Heart Association, we should just be aiming for a dietary pattern with no more than 5% of our calories coming from your saturated fats. So if you crank up that source, you may end up having heart disease in the long run. So another misconception is that you are going to reverse all of your diseases. But then again, we are just controlling everything. And it might be detrimental in the long run.
Dr. Joy, stress and increased weight, stress and getting thin. On both spectrums, stress can do that. What is the lowdown on this? How does stress contribute to weight gain, and how does stress contribute to this very unhealthy looking weight loss?
Well, stress makes you produce your stress hormone called cortisol. And cortisol or steroid makes you deposit more fat in your body. And also stress causes you to eat more. You know, some people do stress eating during this pandemic, and they eat more, especially at night. And this is detrimental because it can get easily deposited in your body and much harder to burn. It's very important for us also to get enough sleep. So if you're under a lot of stress, you can have trouble sleeping as well. And if you have disordered sleep or not enough sleep or not enough quality sleep, you can have your hormones all out of whack, all out of sync, and this can contribute to weight gain.
Before we go, what's your advice for our viewers when it comes to being healthy?
To effectively lose weight and fat, again, one must have a balanced diet with a suitable exercise regimen, proper sleep, cessation of vices if you have, limitation in stress, and having a positive social connection. A diet should be in consortium with your lifestyle medicine physician, your other physicians, your specialists, your endocrinologists, your cardiologists, and all other doctors that are on your team, and of course, your registered nutritionist dietitians for proper individualized guidance.
And Dr. Joy, any words of encouragement, advice for our viewers?
Please choose your healthier fat if you're going to be indulging in fat. So fat from plant sources like avocados, nuts, and seeds are your friends, and they can help you live a healthier life. Extra virgin olive oil is also a good source of your healthy fat. Now, let's all remember to just eat to live and not live to eat.
Thank you, lifestyle medicine specialist Dr. Dex Macalintal and endocrinologist Dr. Joy Fontanilla for sharing with us your expert insights. Maraming salamat. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We'll see you again next time.